talking about. Let's get the debate up. What's next? Why we should focus on the future? Yeah, it's a loaded question, isn't it?
Drinks.
Perhaps, and whisper this quietly, heresy. Telcos should forget about the present and instead take time to align themselves with future needs. In which case, what are the crucial decisions that need to be taken now in the next few years to position telcos to capitalise on some of these fabulous new service opportunities that are just around the corner? I was about to say, who would be the first to mention 6G in the multiverse, but we've already done that. I think that happened after, what, about 12 minutes into the day or something. There we go. So, let's crack on. Our first expert witness is a returning Neil McRae. So if Neil could come up, I will remove my paddle out of the way. Neil, please, it's all yours.
Hi there, everyone. So look, I think I'm not in favour of kind of abandoning today because, well, we can't. That's the reality of it. The world depends upon telecommunications, and it's kind of interesting hearing what Phil had to say. Sadly, when he probably thinks about telecoms is when we've probably broke it, and then he's on the phone crazy because his entire business will stop if we don't work. And that is the great thing about our industry is so many people depend upon us to deliver. So when I looked at what the future should look like, I actually kind of look at it from a point of view of 5 years more than a couple of years, because that's the kind of cycle we're in. And if I look at what's out there over the next 5, maybe even 10 years, what I see is an increasing demand on connected things, people, as well as much more into things, devices, that actually probably won't talk to anyone except each other. And that's why in our purpose in BT, we talk about connecting things as well as humans, because actually I think that's where the future is going to head for us. And what does that mean for us? It means a world where more and more things just operate and do stuff without any kind of human intervention. In the more distant future, it allows humans to focus on other things, perhaps more creative, with more kind of menial tasks being left to machinery. Yeah, a long way to go to get there, but it's definitely on the horizon, and you can see it in some countries like China and Japan. But the key thing is we may be seen as a commodity, but we're a really important commodity to all of industry, to how we work, rest, and play. And no greater moment of that was during the pandemic. And it allowed, the pandemic allowed us to really shine. Our NPS went from minus something to the highest it's ever been, as customers really appreciated the power of the network. But I said this earlier today, our industry, and I challenge even the wider technology industry, we haven't gone past this device. And I think that's limited us in what's truly possible, both in the network, but also in technology. And I really want to see us take connectivity beyond tablets and devices into supermarkets to help them stack shelves quicker and keep the veg fresher, using high-definition TV to say, does this lettuce look okay or not? That's a real thing that we're doing today as a trial. Going into, I mentioned Rolls-Royce, helping them build engine as a service by giving them really high definition video of how an engine is constructed so that they can see any issues. Working with someone who manufactures something like tires for motor cars, ensuring that their production line constantly runs by doing anomaly detection. And I think the future is bright for us, but we've got to automate and kind of take out the effort that we put into just to deliver our basic services. Again, we said this morning, so that we can pivot to these value-add things that can enable the outcomes that Phil talked about. And I think we are one of the few organizations that can actually bring many partners, many technology players, and most importantly, people together to make the real power of the network be seen and be experienced and enjoyed. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Well said. Thank you very much, Neil. Now, could we have our next expert witness, please? Darrell, please come up to the lectern. A round of applause for Darrell. Darrell Jordan-Smith, Senior Vice President, TME and Industries at Red Hat.
Thank you very much. And I'm not going to get my speech out now because Neil just gave it. So I can... that's the benefit of not going first. Certainly from our perspective at Red Hat, there are really kind of three things that we're actually seeing in the marketplace evolve over the next 5 to 10 years. The first thing is community. What I mean by community is innovation fueled through community, and you would think an open source company would talk a lot about that, but I think in telecommunications, what we're actually seeing is an enhanced element of community, and we've discussed some of that today. So from conversations around Open RAN not being quite there yet and delivering the necessary ROI in terms of what we're doing there, we're going to see different communities evolve. And that sort of evolves into my next point, which is very similar to what Neil was talking about. That's what are the next set of applications? So what we're beginning to see in terms of innovation is how telecommunications companies are working with different industry segments to go beyond the tablet, into robotics, into digital oil fields, into medicine, into retail, into a number of other media-based sets and use cases, all using high bandwidth, low latency, communications-orientated network infrastructure. And I think a lot of those things are going to happen over the next 5 years. I think the biggest inhibitor to that, not to insult any of the telecommunications companies here, is, at the moment, you're very good at, if you're in a mobile business, selling a SIM, but you're not very good at actually taking that stage further. We need to get to that stage further. That's why that community is going to be very, very important to us all. And I think in the next 5 years, we're going to bring that together. The last point I want to make is around automation and the ability to automate the network infrastructure at huge scale. So once you get beyond tablets to biometrics and interconnect the thing of things, we're going to need to be able to automate that for security-based reasons and other elements. And I think over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to start seeing that technology mature a lot more than what it actually is today. And I think that again, going back to community and innovation, we're going to see different groups, different businesses coming together, driving that and delivering the next mile of communication, to put it in that way. Outside of that, in 5 years' time, and it's a question mark more than anything, we call them hyperscalers, the Microsoft Azures, the Amazons, the Googles of the world. They're going to have an important role to play. And make no mistake, it's our opinion that they intend to be in the telecommunications business. So how do we actually leverage the benefit, and there are significant benefits in engaging with them, without disintermediating ourselves? So I think that's going to be worked through over the next 5 years, having a hybrid multi-cloud experience, and how do we actually interact and leverage the whole community coming together. So with that, my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell. Thank you very much indeed. Terrific. Our next expert witness is Diego Lopez, Senior Technology Expert at Telefonica. Diego, please, come on up.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're coming here and being known as I was in a past life, and someone able to talk for 45 minutes with a single slide. I decided to come with nothing prepared, just enter something I would call sponge mode, trying to see what people were saying here and try to address a few things connected to that. So I was taking notes on my mobile phone. I'm afraid that I would have material for 44 minutes. Not 45, but the most. Well, basically, of all that has been discussed, something that came to my mind first is that we are celebrating these days when we started the journey 10 years ago about network transformation with NFV, etc. And this is something that I would like to reflect a little bit about that in this world of generations defined by regulators and in many cases, vendors. And this has been refreshing, at least for me and some colleagues, the fact that it was started by operators, because operators needed this change, and this is something that is important. Regarding this, and apart from that, I made a list of don'ts and do's. In the don'ts, at the end, I tried to summarize it as trying to avoid to fall in the abracadabra pit. And this is the idea that there are words that apparently just by using them, we are going to, our life is going to be solved. And that includes cloud native, metaverse, AI, and something that is especially disliked, that is monetization. the monetization, we are having monetization by selling connectivity. What else? I mean, we can for sure invent anything else, but there is a very old saying in Spanish that more or less translated is shoemaker, make your shoes. And this is something that is for the telco environment. Go and provide telecommunications. That is the essential thing. Apart from that, there have been things that I was missing somehow in the discussion that are very much important, in my opinion, for the future. It is about, somebody during the lunch break mentioned sustainability beyond the energy consumption. What about recycling? What about thinking about the circular economy of gear, software, etc.? What about if we make evolve our certification processes, the way in which we decide what can be connected? We are much more agile. We're talking about imitating the cloud providers, but we still have our old-fashioned ways of certifying. What about going a little bit bolder beyond the constraint? Because it is a constraint right now of the IP, TCP IP or quick IPv6, whatever. And what about thinking that the access networks and all the like could be run with different architectures if needed? What about new cryptography? We need to evolve security. All the security of our networks are based on node-based cryptography that is sensitive. It will be suitable to be attacked by quantum computers. And just to finish, because I see that in red, let me remind that it's true, we are a commodity. Our customers are concerned about us providing our services in the seamless possible way. But don't forget, we are the coolest commodity possible. Enjoy that.
Diego, thanks very much. Cool factor. Thanks very much indeed. Great. Our next expert witness is Nicola Marziliano, who is VP International Telco Sales at Wind River.
Thank you very much.
Please.
Hello, gentlemen. So I prepared a paper list. I was doing my digital version on the iPad. Then during the course of the day, I took notes on the paper. And then I realized that by my age, I need glasses. So everything is just useless. So I will just go freely without anything. I would just go with my mind. And I try to collect a different opinion idea. Of course, the future looks like brilliant. And I think that I like very much the news from the 1971 when they were futuristically thinking about how do you transmit information, paper, maps, videos, and I think the future is there, and we are building that future. But sometimes what is in the room today is what I call the oxymoron of the present of the future. So it's how do we translate that today? What will gonna be in the future? And it's not about visualizing the future, because we can visualize. It's to make it happen. What we see as an industry trend is we talk about digitalization, and COVID gave a lot of acceleration to the digitalization effect. But then how do we transform our industry? And especially I was listening to the retail just now. There is a lot of digitalization happening now, but are we going at the right speed? Are we supporting them? Are we connecting? I think many years ago we talked about IoT, and now it looks like we are still dragging into how IoT and Internet of Things will be really interconnected. I do believe that in the future, the extreme connectivity, so the way I think that Daniel was today talking about, the iPhone killing all the, other hardware, just building one single site. I think we're going to be in a situation where what we call the intelligent edge will be at the very far edge of everything. Now, how do we connect? How do we interconnect all the possibility of this myriad of devices to be connected? There will be challenges, of course. There will be, automation. I think that people mentioned about how do we automate. I mean, you cannot manage networks of networks in the today environment. How do you have energy saving? I think that is a big theme in these days. How energy consumption. I mean, can you imagine a world of billion devices connected? It's going to be cost a fortune. What is the energy bill? It's going to be impressive. How do you minimize the use of software? People were talking about softwareization. So how the software will save not only time and hardware, but even the energy consumption, so that you run on the minimum software component as possible. So how do we do that? And final probably remark is skill set. I think that, I don't know what is the situation in the UK, but I can see, some market, universities are still not, producing enough engineers out there. And I think that someone was mentioning about the Gen Z. I mean, some of our kids maybe are thinking about to be influencer, but do they want to be an engineer? I don't know. That would be an interesting question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diego, thank you very much indeed. That's terrific. Thank you very much. We were to have heard from Oliver Cantor at Verizon, but unfortunately Oliver isn't very well. So that means our final speaker for this debate, and indeed for this year's great telco debate.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. Let's finish on a high note, David. David Boswarthick, who is Director of New Technologies at ETSI.
Hello, thank you for that fantastic introduction. So I am David Boswarthick. I work for ETSI. I don't work for a telecom provider, an ESP, a CSP. I work for a standards organization. So going back to the question, should CSPs focus on today or tomorrow? Well, I think it's a very complicated question. You cannot just look one way or the other. So as I work for a standards organization, I'll take it from that perspective. I don't work for a CSP. I don't work for a DSP. I heard ESP. So maybe the next generation will be FSP. I'm not too sure the way that road's going. But it's been quite a musical day. In another event, I heard Jethro Tull. We had Eddie Van Halen. We had cornets and trumpets. So I wanted to quote a great British poet, Mr. Paul Weller, who in about 1977 penned an English classic. We make the standards and we make the rules. And if you don't abide by them, you must be a fool. We've built up frontage, ask Google what that means, and we've gained respect, but there's no one to endanger our position. That was 45 years ago. I think things have changed now. There certainly are many different perspectives that could endanger the position of standardization. We're in an element of constant change and constant risk. But imagine a world without standardization. Imagine trains not meeting in the middle and in the Channel Tunnel. Imagine when you have to travel the world with multiple plug adapters in your case. Imagine where you have to have multiple telephone chargers. Oops, sorry, I got it wrong again. But imagine a world without standards, it would be chaos. So where are we today? We have multiple standards for multiple networks, and those networks need to be deployed transparently, fluidly, and need to interwork all the time. Today, in standardization, we are hearing and we're seeing a risk of something I've named foam, which it seems quite appropriate. We have a risk of fragmentation, ossification, thank you, Diego, and multiplication. And multiplication foam. So fragmentation, we know that in 3GPP we are making the one standard for mobile networks. But recently, because of geopolitics and business politics, we've seen there's been risk of fragmentation. So we have to do everything to ensure that in the future, a single standard for mobile networks is maintained, because you go away and try to implement multiple radio interfaces, multiple standards inside multiple devices and roam across the world. It's not easy. Also, we're seeing the evolution from traditional standards, waterfall, to open source and open software, agile. This means that everything needs to move together. Standards have been around for hundreds of years. ETSI has been around for 30 years, 3GPP around for 20 plus years. Open source is relatively new. I know there's been code around forever, but we need to make sure that these are written and implemented with a view to the vision. So what we really do need to maintain is that we have the minimum amount of standards to serve the maximum purpose. 6G, I think it's been mentioned already, it has been announced. The investments are out there. There's billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of euros being put at the table. Research is underway and visions are publicized. But what we need to focus on is that 5G is the now generation. The operators need to get it deployed, they need to get it out to their customers, and they need to that it works to the 5 nines all the time and very reliable. But we must keep an eye to the future. So what will 6G be? For the moment, all I've heard is terahertz, AI, and sustainability. That cannot define a new generation, and 6G cannot be the generation that just fixed everything we couldn't get right in 5G. So I think it's important to look at the past. We're still maintaining 2G, 3G. We have facsimile. We have ADSL. We need to focus on the present, make sure the revenue streams are coming in, but don't forget what the future could be. And with that, I will conclude. Thank you very much.
David, thank you. Thank you very much, David. Round of applause for all our speakers. Thank you very much indeed. Great. Well, we have heard from our 5 expert witnesses, which means we need a great telco debate motion. Graham, do you have a motion for this final debate?
Luckily, we have one, Guy. Luckily, we have one.
Are you going to get the last one right or read?
I'll try and get the last one right. Okay, here it is. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The motion is investment in 6G and the metaverse is already more important than further 5G investment. Outrageous. And in favour is Chris Lewis again.
Do you know, it takes a lot of thinking. So when we create these motions, I literally do lose sleep over these things, right? And let alone then working out whether I get to speak for or against them. So I try and put both sides in my head and then argue with myself, which is a really great way to prepare for a debate like this. And what I want to put down, and I think many of the lessons that we've heard today talk about what we need to do to adapt, whether it's to the customer, to the supply environment, to the ecosystem delivering services. And I recently visited Raheem Tafez Ali's 6G lab down in Surrey and saw his demo of a doctor doing a remote patient diagnostic on an elderly person in a care home. Brilliant concept, headset, haptic glove, all the feedback. And I said, well, surely we can do that today. And the issue that we've talked about, and it goes back to one of the comments earlier on about we need to think about the outside in and all of the potential connections and all of Neil's things coming in to connect into it, not necessarily related to the human side. And it's not just about high levels of connectivity, not big bandwidths. It's every sort of connection. And I think about this in the gaming environment. In the gaming world, of course, everyone would love to be fully immersed and fully 3D, 4D, whatever generation. But we can't have that, and there'll always be people jumping in, watching people gaming, people joining in with different sorts of services. So the future is about bringing all these things together and actually synchronizing all of those communications flows. So if we think about the step from 5G to 6G, we're thinking about the wrong thing. Metaverse should make us think about the way that all of the communications pieces come together, all of the storage, compute, applications, and the outcomes, to take it back to Phil's comment from Sainsbury's, because by building that broader view of how things work, will better describe to us the way in which connectivity will fit in, not dominate, fit in as a very essential component for delivering those services in the future. Perhaps we need different structure for the industry. We certainly need different investment. But if we just focus on 5G, we're going to miss a massive generational shift for where communications, the telco, will fit into that future environment. I ask you to vote for the motion.
It may come as some surprise to you, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm going to ask you to vote against the motion. And I've got 3 cases to make. And first of all, I was inspired by David's choice of poetry to illustrate his point. So I'm going to illustrate my first point. My first point is this: we don't need more of the future, we need less of the past. Okay. And I'm going to illustrate that with a bit of poetry from Philip Larkin, great British poet. He said, "They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do." Right? And how true, of course, in most people's cases anyway. So we've got a lot of legacy stuff, haven't we? We've got a lot of baggage from the past. We've got X25, we've got 2G, we've got 3G, consuming an enormous amount of power with a very small amount of traffic, as I was discussing with somebody just a few minutes ago. Wouldn't it be better to just focus on getting rid of some of that old stuff, right? And focusing on the here and now. We've already got more power-efficient technologies. Let's roll out 5G properly with capacity and coverage that we need, and let's not worry too much about 6G and the metaverse, right? Point number 1. Point number 2.
So you're saying put the handbrake on?
For 6G,
okay,
yes.
All right.
Point number 2, right? Have you been on a Teams call recently where someone's had their camera off, right? What you see when they have their camera off is a black circle with their initials on it, right? What does that look like in the metaverse? It looks like a black ball, perhaps, with their initials on it, right? So the metaverse, we don't need it. We don't need all of that stuff right now, okay? Let's not worry about that. And the third point is, We need money now, right? We need customers now, right? Let's not worry about what happens 5, 6, 7 years down the line. Every telco is focused on this quarter, the next quarter, okay? So all of this talk about the future, come on, we don't need it, right? Please vote against the motion. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Graham and Chris, thank you I'm going to miss these motions when we go back. I really am. Thanks for it. We should make more of them. Maybe we should do them like once a month where you can, like an email thing. You can just email them or something.
That's no sleep.
Anyway, thanks so much for those. Before we take our vote, of course, we are going to discuss. And the man to discuss is Ray LaMajor. Ray.
I love that argument against the metaverse, is that people don't put their cameras on, so we don't need it.
Can I ask a question? Why do you get a sting when you come on and none of the rest of
I don't know. I can assure you, Chris, it's not because I'm more rock and roll.
Phil, I'll see you afterwards.
Right, okay. Okay, I see a hand waving at the back there and one down the front here, so let's start at the back and then come down to here at the front.
Since we are talking about the future, I was really disappointed to not hear the word slicing anywhere.
It's like the running gag of the day, isn't it?
It's a world beyond slicing.
If we can come down to Howard here and then to France.
Great. Just a comment about slicing.
Oh, right.
Apart from the agreement we had about not talking about that, so this
There was no. Let's talk.
no. Well,
Even though the cake has gone, let's talk about it.
slicing is something that is not the future. It's supposed to be the present. First, second, I have detected that the industry is becoming a great consumer of buzzwords. Probably slicing has already been eaten, digested, and everything else. And that implies that, well, the promise of slicing about providing a virtual network that, apart from the virtual connectivity and isolation, is able to provide other functions, etc., is going to be there. Whether we call them slicing, whether we call them interconnection of private networks or whatever, it's going to be there. So I guess that is just because the word has become not so hot, basically.
Digested yet.
Sorry?
Metaverse is not digested and consumed yet.
Exactly. But give it a couple of years, maximum.
Okay, Howard.
Howard Watson, BT. I think slicing is about as well defined as the metaverse, i.e. not at all.
Indeed, yes.
And therefore, actually, we're not spending much time worrying about that anymore either. But so I am very much against the motion here for the reasons that were brilliantly articulated. I think we owe it to all of the work we've put in for. I would say this, of course, for 2.5 years, rolling out 5G to just over half the population to start making some money out of it. So we've got to absolutely double down and focus on that. I would say, however, though, that, and I love the point about fragmentation, we do really, and I think as European operators, we have got to really sit in the middle between this battle that we think is going to go on between the East and the West around the standards for 6G, and maybe the metaverse. And I think, despite the fact it's non-cool in this country, we've still got to go and look at what's happening in China, because one thing's for sure, 6G is going to happen there first. They've already got 5G out to pretty much they will have another 1.5 years to the entire country. They've got FTTP to every building. They're talking about fibre to the bedroom now. Huawei won't have any 5G left to sell in 2.5 years' time. So they're gonna push 6G like crazy, and so we need to at least make sure that that doesn't create complete fragmentation with what we will ultimately have to do. But still, absolutely, that's for 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe, if you work with the government, 40 people to focus on. In terms of getting in standards bodies to be clear we don't get the fragmentation, but the rest of us need to make some money out of 5G.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicola, let's come to you.
Yeah.
May I comment? I take the opportunity of your comment to reiterate what I was saying before in the oxymoron we are living between the past and the future, and the today, the present and the future. I think we are locking in this 5G versus 6G. And I'm puzzled because today there was a debate about O-RAN. And O-RAN is the today, but in reality is the future. It's exactly the bridge between the 5G and the 6G. 6G and the metaverse will monetize something in the future. But the 5G, as to your point, yes, you have invested on the 5G, but 5G is still in some way an old technology. Meaning that is, and I'm not against or in favor of this motion, but I'm just saying that 5G was designed to be, from the past, a monolithic version. O-RAN gives the opportunity to diversify. And I'm just a little bit puzzled by the conversation today of, a lot of opinion why O-RAN is not bringing value, why is not opening for opportunity, because that is a plateau for moving to the 6G, to the monetization, to the diversification, to the softwareization, to diversify your business case. And the future is today. It's not yesterday or it's not tomorrow, it's today. So why not moving? I think that we are missing the imagination to start executing. We don't need to be Steve Jobs to invent something, but there should be someone having the courage to start moving and doing now, and not just waiting for the next. Because I like the statement of technology is the name for something that is just in a itinerary. So it's just is a moving part. Technology will never be fixed. So we may wait 7G or 8G. It's not about G. It's about us taking decision and moving on. Final comment. There was a lot of debate about TCO on O-RAN. I mean, we need to move away from vertical investment toward horizontal investment. 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, even O-RAN is still perceived as a vertical. No, it's a platform diversification. So your return on investment, or TCO, is not going to be vertical. It's going to be horizontal. If you do it vertically, you're still missing your point. You need to diversify across the business case that you can generate.
I'm just going to, after this, I'm going to see our CFO to talk to him about vertical and horizontal. I mean, look, I think it's a great kind of vision to have. And how do we experiment without, how do we get to experimentation without kind of being overly focused on the case to deploy? But let me tell you, 5G has not been good for our business, for all of our businesses. I said it earlier, look at the stock price of every telco in Europe. Even in the US, look at what's happened in the US. 5G has not been a positive step for our industry as it stands right now. And I'm one of the biggest cheerleaders for 5G because I think we have to be. So we need to learn from what went wrong in 5G, and we need to make sure that whatever we're building in the future, and I hope personally we don't go for this 6G flag day, because the chaos it causes I just don't think it's worth, I don't think it helps any of us. But I truly believe that if we don't learn from what's not worked well in 5G, there probably won't be a 7G and probably a 6G that is fragmented, because those that can afford to build it in China will build it and will be left behind. So, let's be really focused on, let's step back and be really focused on the customer in this process. Let's think about what are they really, what can we do that really makes a difference to their life, rather than loads of pilots about a drone that delivers coffee. By the time it arrives, it's like there's that much left in it and it's cold. That was the 5. I mean, I was in China. I've got a video of this if you want to watch it.
And then the espresso is going to be even less.
But yeah, I don't even drink coffee. But the point is we've got to think customer in this journey, which is why I'm against this. We've got to keep customers happy today, and keep them on the journey of them understanding the power and the difference that the network can make. And to do that, we have to listen to customers.
That wasn't a hint. I'm not sure what it was. So we're going to come to Francis next, and then go to the back of there, and then again down the front here, and then to there. So Francis.
Francis Haysom, Appledore Research. Is it time to just abandon Gs? This is not generational. And the question simply goes away. The idea that fibre to the bedroom is part of some kind of mobile wireless standard is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Comment.
100%.
I think I have to answer that one. If you ask me personally, without talking to my employer, I would say, do we need a 6G? 6G will happen. Betting man, let's bet on it, it will happen. It's possibly but not the best thing to happen. In 2030, people will, or even before, depending on the regional or priorities, somebody will roll out 6G in 2028 or something like that. It won't be a real 6G, but it'll be something that somebody will call.
AT&T.
Exactly. It will be called something like AT&T pilot project running to a satellite. So it's going to happen. I think we should note that somebody actually said 7G and 8G in an event in 2020, which is scary. I don't think there's going to be a 7G, and I hope there won't be an 8G. In 3GPP, we work in releases, and Kevin Holly's here. He knows all about that. Yeah. We don't work in 10-year generations. We will release functionality in releases. They turn every 18 months. There's a midpoint in a generation. So you need to be able to push out functionality to customers as quick as possible. Don't wait for this big triangular generation pushing out the boundaries. Focus on the functionality. Focus on getting the standards right. I wanted to say that earlier on. In the FOAM, F-O-A-M, there is the ossifications. We need to make sure that the standards we make for 5G Advanced and 6G are not the same we made in 2G or 3G. So this PDF to Python discussion. We need to ensure that when we're actually writing standards for 6G, it's done in a completely different way. There will be AI, as Diego didn't want to hear mentioned, actually being in the network, being native to the network. There may actually be AI writing the standards. So it's going to be a completely different world tomorrow. So focus on today. Make money today to be enabled to finance tomorrow. 100%. But know what will be coming over the horizon, as mentioned in 1971, that wonderful video. We have a vision on the horizon. Always look to the horizon, but make money and keep the customers happy today.
Okay, we go to the back there.
So Ian Fogg, Open Signal. I have to agree with everything just said. I think, I've got to say something radical. I think we're actually underselling what the innovation the industry is doing when we talk about a G. A G implies there's a 10-year innovation cycle. The reality is the phone I have in my pocket is considerably better in its connectivity than the phone I had in my pocket 2 years ago. Yeah. When you have comparisons, which I get asked a lot, is 5G that much better than 4G? I say, yeah, it is. It's 5 to 6 times faster typically, and that's just the start of the cycle. And that's comparing 5G with the end of the 4G innovation cycle. It's comparing with LTE Advanced Pro, not the 4G we had 10 years ago. We are underselling our industry by talking about something that's a 10-year innovation cycle. When every couple of years there's a new 3GPP standard, every year there are new modems in our devices, new chipsets in the RAN, new innovations happening left, right, and center. We're underselling what innovation the industry is doing. And when you think about the technology sector, the operating systems are on a 1-year feature upgrade cycle with often feature releases within the year. We're actually not far different from that. But we're saying to the world, we're on a 10-year innovation cycle. We're not. We're innovating all of the time. And we need to alter our marketing to explain that innovation that's happening every 6 months, every year. Because we can see that in all the data coming through, all the analytics about the experience on mobile networks. It's improving all of the time, but we're underselling it.
Any commentary?
Yeah, I totally agree. And by the way, this gentleman was the one that gave me the idea of the total recycling and the circular. Yeah, just to give full credit to the. Something it's true that we are underselling, and we are referring that we are not doing this and that. And then you think about it, and for example, the metaverse basically is Google Glasses and Second Life. Basically, if you think about it, it was already invented. Yeah. It's nothing new. We are obsessed with Second Life, plus a little bit of a standard reality. So in that respect, we are not very good at selling. That's true, and we're underselling what we are doing. Playing this game of the Gs. On the other hand, not necessarily it's only your fault. Those of you who have heard me in the past know that I'm always claiming against the current way of regulation, because it's the regulation of 40 years ago. well, what it was applicable 40 years ago. And I believe that this is an enormous problem for innovation in there, and is stopping us for having a healthy innovation ecosystem in the industry.
Okay. I'll just build on the fact that if we're going to go into industry and tag them with this G malarkey, like the utility industry's got capex cycles of 50 years. Does that mean that they need to change to every time we change something, they've got to change something? That isn't going to work. So, I 100% agree. No more Gs. How do we constantly evolve? How do we constantly add value where we need to? And Apple last week turned on satellite communications. There's no G involved in that. They just decided they were going to do it. Went out, wrote the standard, and boom, it's working. So I think we need to move to that model much more, and I feel that we will get much more value and competition and innovation if we move to that model and we're constantly innovating. And actually, we are doing it. We just pretend this. We just draw this line, and then everyone stops building everything for a year whilst they wait for the 5G freeze so that they can say we're 5G compatible or whatever it is, 6G. So I really think we need to be on a path of constant innovation and adding things. And that otherwise, why are we doing software? What's the point? If we've done all this softwareization and we're still going to live to a hardware cycle, that seems nuts to me.
Okay, question down here.
Yeah, hi, it's Sanjay Nahar from Sky Connect. So it's an observation and also a question as well. So I think on the observation part, and this is from a customer perspective, is that if we go in with conversations about 5G and then saying, right, well, we're also looking at 6G, I think there is a danger that our customers disengage, because what's actually happened is we've probably not really fully realized the use cases that we said we were going to deliver that would provide that transformation for enterprise customers, right? So as a customer, I would disengage, and I would probably wait until I've made a decision. And I think the other thing is, when we look at 6G and metaverse, is there a danger that it just becomes another 5G MPN, as in, who's actually driving the need for metaverse? Yeah, who's calling the shots on this? Is it the tech companies in order to sell more technology, right? Or is it customers? Are we seeing the demand from enterprises and then capturing those use cases that actually crystallize the need for metaverse?
Okay, and can I just, on that, we've got a question in here which I think really dovetails very nicely. This is from our online audience. And the question there is, will telcos be able and manage to monetize the metaverse, or will it be another workload on the network that will put pressure on the telcos, but where somebody else will eventually make the money?
Well, I just have a comment and a consideration I was discussing with some colleagues today. We were missing a bit today the presence of application developers. Because, I mean, one of the enablers for the future is exactly someone that is inventing those applications. Now we talk about metaverse, but it's not only metaverse. There will be alternatives. And we don't know yet, but probably having 2, 3, and there are a lot of startups and good software developers that are thinking about that. How do we nurture them? How do we enable them to be the next metaverse, the next application that will be the killer? Probably in this conversation we should have my consideration for today's session.
I think we've got to focus on how to make money. I think that point is really well made. I think looking at the enterprise use cases, like emphasize use cases, will leverage different technologies. You could do things quite advanced today, even on a 3G network. You don't need a 5G network. There are problems that are going to occur on 5G when you look at robotics at the edge of the network in terms of power consumption. These are all real problems that we need to innovate around. And coming back to, Nicola, your point on developers, innovation quite often sits out there. We've got to do a much better job of creating the interfaces that leverage the infrastructure and the investments that we've made in order to drive that innovation, in order for us to make money. Because if we can't make money out of 5G, or we can't make money out of the network infrastructure that we have today, there won't be a next one. So we've really got to do that. And I think coming back to the question on metaverse, I think it's just a set of tools and enablement in areas. I think it will just generally evolve over many, many years. I don't think it will be a thing for like 10 or 15 years. That's my personal opinion.
And when it comes to monetize the metaverse, if we're talking about that there will be a demand of connectivity services, for sure. If you're talking that it's going to be a demand of targeted connectivity services, might be, and that would be a good opportunity for monetizing, that it was not to be about monetizing the metaverse. It would be about monetizing an additional demand on connectivity services related to the metaverse or related to the Industry 5.0 or to whatever. It's important that we don't get obsessed with things that are totally beyond our control and that are using it. Very often when talking about this, about monetizing, etc., I insist very much, imagine that if you are an electric company, you wanted to sell as well the soap that or the detergent that you use inside the washing machine because it works with electricity. Come on, what you're interested in is that the people can use electricity in the best way possible. In this case, it should be the same. In the evolution, as the applications evolve, very likely they will put additional requirements of the network, and this is very important, if the regulation allows us, we will be in the position of offering this as a service to our end customers or to the people that are providing the applications that would be interested in consuming those services.
Okay, great.
Ray, can I make a comment?
Yeah, and then we're going to come to the question back there.
I think that ultimately we've got to flip it around and say, not follow the money. What are people willing to pay for? And Ian, to your point, I'm not sure people pay for the many things you described in your comment. Often with a new phone, they're paying for a better camera because they get a better outcome in doing that and the application. So I think we have an issue in terms of, I agree, the way we market and what we sell, hence my question to Phil about what is it the telecom industry is selling. But increasingly, those things will become embedded in other activities, whether it's on the gaming platform or whatever the metaverse is. Right? I prefer Terry Pratchett's multiverse because I think he gives many different things. But what are we willing to pay for? And that comes down to lifestyle, it comes down to business, and it comes down to economics. And I think connectivity, as we heard early on in the day, is just everyone assumes it's there, and the relationship between the individual, the business, and the connectivity industry is several steps removed from what the experience that people get with that camera or with the application or all the other things. So I think it needs a repositioning of the whole industry to support whatever multiverse, metaverse has emerged.
Okay, question.
Yes, Leo Gerks, ABI Research. Chris was talking about monetization from a consumer perspective. I want to look at maybe more the enterprise perspective. If we look back at 5G, the huge promise was always enterprise 5G is going to be the big revenue opportunity for the telco industry. And we've discussed this earlier on. So my question is, if the telco industry, or if we as an industry as a whole, start to move towards 6G, both in terms of marketing and in terms of investment, how do you realistically expect any sane enterprise to invest in enterprise 5G now if they continue to hear 6G is the new hot kid on the block and it's just around the corner, which probably will be delayed, I don't know, in the worst possible case, maybe be delayed by 5-6 years. So they'll be kept waiting for as long as they kept waiting for 5G already.
Okay. The answer might be to not mention it at Davos, but let's come to David first.
Definitely. I think we have a responsibility not to talk too much about 6G in public events. We should talk about 5G, what needs to be done, the services can be offered. One of the big wins of 5G and 3GPP was the involvement of vertical sectors. You have the MRPs representing satellite, broadcast, industry, vehicular. They're coming in and bringing in their requirements. So for the first time, we've actually engaged with the vertical industries. If we now start saying, oh, 6G is fantastic, forget about 5G, which is what the gentleman was saying, that's not going to do a lot for the adoption. So recognize 6G is announced, it's part of the 10-year cycle. Hundreds of thousands and billions of dollars and euros is being invested in the research. That's important to know. But we need to say that it's research and vision. It's not the now generation. Now generation 5G Advanced. Let's get it right. Let's get services, customers confident. We don't want to be looking at, we cannot turn off 2G and 3G because they have IoT services and other services on there. We don't want to scare away other users so they don't invest in 5G because we're publicly talking about 6G. 5G is the now generation.
Okay, if there's no more responses, then we've got a question over here and then a question over there.
Just more of a statement than a question. I fully agree with Neil and everybody else that suggested that we need to get rid of the Gs. Fully agree. 5G is probably the point where we can start getting rid of the Gs, right? For a host of reasons. And to the question of whether operators can monetize metaverse, let's look at the recent past. They can monetize, metaverse as well as they manage to monetize Netflix and YouTube, and we all know the story, right? And in my humble opinion, operators will be able to monetize once they make network slicing a reality. So I can buy a network slice for metaverse, I can buy a network slice for my voice, another one for my Zoom calls, and pay separately for those slices. That's the way to monetize, in my humble opinion.
That would require, to start with, that the current definition of network neutrality is changed. Take that into account.
I think, well,
this is not a matter of the operators offering this. Is that the way in which this could be offered is challenging in terms of regulation.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, can you just imagine going to a customer? Oh yeah, look, I'm downloading this. Oh look, I noticed something on Netflix. Press the button. Hey, call us on 1-800, buy a slice. I'm sorry, but that just feels nuts to me. And how do we change the model so that all of that's invisible? If we're going to go down this crazy path of slicing, and I'm not a believer in slicing, I feel that it's really complex technology to get right, and you're effectively paying for worse or than what you've got today. So how do we change the pricing model? The chap from VMware was talking about earlier, where actually if you do need to use something that requires a specific network capability that's expensive for us to deploy, so low latency, for example, that you pay a one hit. I watch my granddaughter spend an insane amount of money on different guns for Fortnite, right? And in the gaming world, they will pay for that type of capability, but we have got to make it totally transparent, because we have a monthly customer event that we have to go and talk to the customers who buy our services, and honestly, it would make you pull your eyes and ears out in terms of how they talk about services that we sell as a telco. They do not understand what we sell or how we sell or how it works together. There was one poor chap who had a bad experience with one service provider and changed to another, but actually it was OpenReach that was delivering the actual infrastructure, which didn't change at all. And unsurprisingly, he got the same bad experience because there was actually a line fault. And customers just do not understand that level of complexity, particularly in consumer, but even to some extent in enterprise. You hear what Phil says is, we think about technology probably at cost, budget, telecoms at budget time, and we're opening a new store, we need to order a backhaul. That's it. So I hear what you're saying about, can we come up with new pricing models? But we absolutely have to do that in a way that's really simple for customers to operate.
That's right. Let's not mix technology. Just to clarify, I use the example to simplify, right? It can be super fast slice, fast slice, slow slice. Consumer understands that. Let's not mix how you can realize the vision, right, with how you present it to the.
Our consumers are not like us in this room.
Ray, can I just say, just to that point, there is a fine line between new and exciting pricing models and extortion. We've got to be on one side of that line, right?
Okay. We're gonna come to Anita and then back to Howard, and then
is much more profitable.
and then we'll see if we've got any more time.
Just to comment on the previous statements that smart manufacturing would not invest in 5G if we speak about 6G, and that we maybe should not speak about 6G. I understand where the statements come from. I fully understand this. But isn't this the wrong type of discussion we are having? For me, it is about value creation to the market. And it's not about value creation, but just one player. It's about value creation across the entire ecosystem. And if we get this right, it's about return of investment, then we don't have the discussion. If someone wants to not invest in 5G, waiting for 6G, or to not speak about 6G, it's about innovation. Innovation will always happen, and we need to get it right, no matter if it's called 5G or 6G.
Yeah, I think maybe we need a code name for 6G.
I think NSA versus SA might challenge that thinking a little bit, in my mind.
So a lot of our clients, I'm quite fortunate, I go across many different industries. None of my clients ask me about 5G or 6G. They talk to me about their problem. Yeah, they're trying to, and that's what we've got to do better at as an industry. We've got to meet them where they are and figure out how to solve their problem.
What problems are we solving?
Yeah, well, you got to ask them what the problem they're trying to solve. So, for example, in manufacturing, they might not need a 5G network to do something. A 4G network would be just as well suited, or even Wi-Fi. We've got to focus on their problem and then bring that ecosystem, as you mentioned, together to address that.
Yeah.
We've got to be better at doing that versus showing up saying we've got wonderful connectivity, we can deliver this wonderful 5G network at super high speeds, because then they turn around and say, well, how does that help me? What problems is that trying to solve for me? So that's my observation.
Okay.
Agreed.
Just a final little thought. If we find it impossible to escape the lure of a G and 6G, can we please and given we also seem to be keen to align them with Olympics, can we make it Brisbane rather than Los Angeles, please?
Right, and one very quick question here, and then we absolutely have to close out. Just behind you there, Howard, if you could pass that across, thank you.
Yeah, Monica Paulini, Senza Fili. So the question mixes 6G with the metaverse, with the implication is that a 5G or 6G that is going to enable the metaverse, but 80% of the indoor traffic is actually carried by Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So could it be that the metaverse really doesn't need either 5G or 6G, and in that case, it's just not going to be something that mobile operators can monetize?
But then we would need the fiber. It would need some degree of telecommunication, whatever it is.
So Facebook's all their current platforms for Meta are Wi-Fi based. That's what makes me crack up when I hear them talk about 5G. Both their headsets today are Wi-Fi driven.
Okay.
So all in all, you will need a telco network, whatever it is, whatever it is
that's
based.
true.
Okay. Red screen at the back. That means I'm going to swap over to Guy. We are going to use our paddles for the final time of the day. So over to you, Guy.
Well done, Ray.
Thank you very much, Ray. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. We have a very hard stop at 5 o'clock, so we are moving quite swiftly. We need to move to the vote. No. So, a reminder of the motion again.
You can do this or this.
So, are you with Chris? Are you with Graham? Do you believe that investment in 6G and metaverse is already more important than further 5G investments? A reminder, if you think yes, it's green, and if you think no, it's red. Up they come.
Wow.
I knew it. I wanted to show a green one.
Clearly,
never in the history of the great telco debate has this happened before.
Clearly,
you're all in denial. Denial.
Target.
100% red. Unbelievable. Right.
Red, eh?
Right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Guy, you're not colourblind, are you?
Eh? Hey, here's a one. Thank you, everyone. Now, before we tell you all about, or before we start our evening's festivities, I need to wrap this up in a nice festive bow. It is the end of the Great Telco Debate 2022, which means it's time for DSP. And you are all invited to join us next May. He turns around. In Windsor, 23rd, 24th of May. Please join us for the DSP Leaders World Forum. And have we got big plans for that? I don't know, have we got big plans for that? I think we have. We probably have. And so the curtain falls on another great telco debate. Our thanks to TelecomTV's production team for the planning, the management, the running, staging, everything. Brilliant job. Thank you very much indeed.